The last time Marissa touched the fourth-floor glass railing of Harrington and Blake's corporate office, her fingers trembled. Not from nerves, from betrayal. But let's not start there. Let's go back 8 weeks. Back to when she was still the one unlocking the office door first every morning, before even maintenance showed up. At 31, Marissa had finally carved out a title that made her parents stop asking when she was going back to grad school. Operations. Team lead, 4 years. That's how long she'd worked her way up. Through unpaid overtime, quiet cover-ups for VP screw-ups, and corporate dinners where she smiled through insults passed off as just jokes. But she was loyal. That had to mean something, right? One Monday morning, just after finishing her 4th coffee before 10 a.m., her manager, Philip, called her into his glass box of a corner office. "Maris," he said, flipping through papers, like he hadn't just summoned her with a half-dozen exclamation marks in his email. "We're onboarding someone next week. You'll train her. We want her fully ramped in a month." She blinked. "Didn't we freeze hiring?" He smiled too quickly. "It's a strategic exception. Think of it as future-proofing the department." That was his favorite word lately. Future-proofing. Like people were spreadsheets that could be archived and replaced. Still, Marissa nodded. "Sure, happy to help." The new hire arrived the next Tuesday, a woman named Emily, mid-20s, fresh MBA, bright-eyed and suspiciously confident for a supposed junior role. Marissa trained her, gave her full access, walked her through vendor systems, internal protocols, contracts, escalation chains. She even shared her personal Notion template to help Emily settle faster. They sat side by side for hours. And Emily? She asked the right questions, sure, but something in her eyes felt off. Like she already knew what the answers were. Like this was just a formality. By week 3, Philip started looping Emily into meetings Marissa normally led. By week 4, the CEO himself called Emily by name at the quarterly review. By week 5, Marissa's direct report started asking her if she was going on leave or transitioning to a new role. She wasn't. But apparently, everyone else knew something she didn't. The final blow came quietly. On a rainy Friday, HR asked her to pop by for a quick chat before end of day. She didn't even sit down before the HR rep, not even the one she knew well, pushed forward a manila envelope. "We've decided to terminate your employment effective immediately," the woman said, voice rehearsed. "We appreciate your years of contribution." Marissa's ears rang. "What? No. Performance review? No feedback? I just rolled out the new partner dashboard last week." The HR woman didn't blink. "This decision is final. We're restructuring for efficiency. You'll receive severance based on your contract." And that was it. No goodbye. No Philip. No Emily. But when Marissa got home, still holding the umbrella she never opened, she opened LinkedIn on autopilot. There, it was. Emily Sanders, Operations Team Lead at Harrington and Blake. Her old title, same department, posted that morning. Marissa didn't cry that night. She didn't scream either. She just opened her laptop and started a folder titled Future Proofing, the fallout, because if they thought she'd just walk away, they forgot who built that department in the first place. Marissa didn't leave the apartment all weekend. She didn't speak to anyone, didn't respond to texts from coworkers who'd sent the classic, "So sorry to hear. Are you okay?" Messages like a funeral notice had gone out. They weren't reaching out for her. They were reaching out to feel better about themselves. Instead, She stayed in pajamas, surrounded by half-eaten Thai takeout, a swirling black coffee, and a folder titled Future-Proofing the Fallout. Inside were 3 subfolders: policy, violations, internal emails, the Emily file. Marissa wasn't just sad. She was livid, but not loud about it. Not yet. She knew something from all her years in ops. HR only cares when it's in writing or in numbers. Preferably both. The Emily file. She started there. She pulled Emily's onboarding documents, the ones she herself uploaded into the company's secure drive, and reviewed the hire date, 2 weeks before the position restructuring. 2 weeks before Philip sat in his glass box and pretended it was a last-minute hire. But then she remembered something even better. She had screen recordings, out of habit, and proof, in case junior staff messed up or processes were questioned. Marissa had always screen recorded her walkthrough trainings. Not all of them, but the ones involving software and high-level permissions, including the session where she gave Emily access to the back-end vendor system. At minute 27 of that video, Emily had said, "Oh, I didn't realize I'd need access to the vendor dashboard. I thought I'd already be in the lead by then." Marissa hit pause, backed it up, played it again. In the lead? She time-stamped it. Saved the clip in a subfolder called Implies Prior Knowledge. Policy violations. Next, she opened the employee handbook, the one she'd helped, revised 2 years ago. She searched for the clause about transparent internal promotions and transitions. There it was. In the event of a structural replacement, internal staff must be notified and given equitable consideration for alternate placement, unless due process has occurred. She highlighted due process. There had been none. Then, she remembered the exit survey form, buried in the intranet. She filled it out completely, truthfully, naming names, giving dates, and attaching evidence. Except, she didn't hit submit, not yet. Internal emails. She still had her Outlook cache on her home laptop. Auto-saved emails, calendar invites. She found an email from Philip to the COO, CC'd to HR, dated 3 weeks before her termination. Subject, Emily's. Transition plan, keeping it quiet for now, the body. Let's keep Marissa in place to ensure continuity through Q2 rollout. Once Emily's ready, we can restructure and offer Marissa a soft exit. Ideally, we position it as performance-related to avoid questions. That single email made her breath hitch. Her hands went cold. They weren't even subtle. They used her to train her replacement, let her finish the quarter's hardest deliverables, then kicked her out to cover their promotion favoritism. Marissa stared at her screen for a long time. She could go the legal route, but the company would fight it. No, she wanted something better. Visibility, impact, exposure. So she opened a new tab and began typing. Hi, Sarah. I know we haven't spoken since the partner summit in Atlanta, but I'm wondering if you're still doing your piece on unethical corporate exits. I may have a story for you. Sarah Daniels, senior business columnist. Marissa had helped her find a bathroom once at a client event. Small favor, but they'd followed each other on LinkedIn ever since. The next morning, she got a reply. Absolutely. Let's talk this week. And off the record? This sounds like the kind of thing our readers love to sink their teeth into. Marissa closed her laptop. For the first time in days, she smiled. They wanted to future-proof the department? Well, she was about to future-proof their legacy. The interview with Sarah Daniels happened over Zoom 2 days later. Marissa sat at her kitchen table, hair half-curled, blazer sharp, makeup minimal but clean. If Harrington and Blake wanted to pretend she was disposable, she would remind the public that she'd always been the one keeping the wheels turning. "Do you want to be anonymous?" Sarah asked gently. Marissa looked straight into the webcam. "No, I want my name on it. They can't pretend I never existed if I say it out loud." Sarah's eyes gleamed. "Then let's begin." The article dropped the following Monday at 7 a.m. I trained my replacement. Then they fired me. Inside one company's quiet betrayal culture. By Sarah Daniels, business ethics and leadership columnist. It was brutal, direct, and meticulously cited. Every receipt Marissa had uploaded, every quote from internal policy, and even a sourced comment from 2 anonymous current employees. She had her guesses, confirming that similar situations had happened to others before her. The story went viral within hours. On LinkedIn, it was reposted over 2,000 times. On Twitter, now X, the hashtag "they used her" trended for most of the day. Corporate Reddit threads lit up with debate. "This is why I don't train anyone anymore unless I have it in writing." "Philip sounds like textbook corporate narcissist behavior." "She deserves justice and a new title, CEO." Marissa sat at home, scrolling through the waves of support, like she was watching her own name rise from a shallow grave. But it didn't stop there. On Wednesday afternoon, she received a DM from a name she hadn't seen since her onboarding day 5 years ago. Dean Kapoor, former VP of Strategy. "Hey Marissa, just saw the article. You probably don't remember, but I always said you were the sharpest one in ops. Hate what happened to you. I just joined a competitor, and we're hiring for director-level operations in our Dallas office. Want to talk?" Her heart caught in her throat. She remembered Dean. He was the only one who ever made Philip nervous. But she didn't answer right away, because something bigger was unfolding behind the scenes. Inside Harrington and Blake Inn, the sleek glass building Marissa once unlocked every morning, panic was beginning to spread. The CEO called an emergency PR meeting. HR was buried under internal complaints, and Philip? He was nowhere to be seen. Because one day after the article dropped, someone had leaked his entire email chain to an anonymous workplace watchdog blog, complete with that line about "position it as performance-related to avoid questions." The blog titled the piece, "Exposed. Exec emails show premeditated replacement scheme at H&B." It included the header, "This is how they future-proofed by eating their own." By Friday, Marissa's inbox was full. 3 HR professionals, 2 former co-workers, 4 podcast invitations, and a quiet message from the company's legal department asking if she'd be open to a settlement conversation. But she didn't answer that one either, because Marissa had learned something. Letting them fire her was their mistake. But what she did with her story, that was her power. And she wasn't done yet. Saturday morning. Marissa woke up to a ping from her Venmo, 50 $50 from JW. Note, for the coffee they never bought you, you're a hero. She blinked, then smiled. It wasn't the first one. Since the article dropped, dozens of strangers had found her, sending tokens of solidarity, thank you emails, even job referrals. A woman in Oregon sent flowers. A man from her old client portfolio DM'd her a contract offer, but it was the LinkedIn post that lit the second fire. When I trained my replacement, I thought I was helping a team grow. Instead, I was unknowingly ending my own career. No warning, no feedback, just a quiet escort out the door. But here's what they forgot. I kept everything. And I'm not ashamed to speak. To everyone who's ever been discarded like a broken stapler, you are not invisible. We were never the problem. We were the glue. Marissa Ortega in 24 hours, 18,000 likes, 3,200 comments, 5,500 reposts, CEOs, recruiters, team leads, career coaches, everyone joined in. Hiring. Marissa would be a power move. Imagine firing the backbone of your ops department. Could never be me. This story should be HR training material. Day 1. A Harrington and Blake any comment? By the time Monday rolled around, she was receiving daily recruiter calls. But one message, buried in the flood, made her freeze. Emily Sanders Operations Team. Lead at Harrington and Blake. Hi Marissa. I didn't know how to reach you privately. I just want you to know. I never knew they were planning to fire you. They told me you were being promoted to corporate and just helping me on board. I never would have taken your job if I'd known. I'm sorry. It was unexpected. For a moment, Marissa felt the tension in her back loosen. But just for a second. Then her eyes narrowed, because Emily still accepted the promotion, still posted her new title, still sat in meetings while Marissa's chair stayed empty. And now that the internet was breathing fire, she wanted distance? No, not yet. Marissa didn't reply. Back at Harrington and Blake inside the company's leadership Slack channel, everything was on lockdown. PR had issued a no-comment internal statement. HR issued a reminder on digital conduct. But the damage had metastasized. The firm's biggest client, a socially conscious fintech group, sent a formal request for clarification on recent press coverage and ethical practices. The board called for a special meeting, and Philip? He was on leave. Marissa read the leaked Slack threads on a burner Reddit account someone anonymously DM'd her. Apparently, staff were calling it the Ortega effect, and that was when she made her next move. A webinar invitation, she said yes to one podcast, then another. Then she was asked to keynote a virtual panel called Reclaiming Your Power After Career Betrayal. Marissa showed up in a blue silk blouse. No filter, no apology. Live viewers, 6,000. She spoke with clarity, not bitterness. Truth, not blame. It's not just about me. It's about how they write people out without explanation. We get told to be professional. But what's professional about betrayal? I spoke up because I knew I wasn't the only one. If they fire the glue, the walls eventually fall. The chat exploded. By the end, she had 2 more paid speaking requests and an invitation to consult on corporate ethics with a startup think tank. But the real shift happened 2 weeks later, when Dean Kapoor, the former VP who had offered her a job, called again. This time, his voice was quieter. Different, Marissa. We're moving fast on scaling. We need someone who's been in the fire, who knows how to build a team that lasts. We're offering you Director of Operations, full autonomy. You'll report to me, and you can hire your own team. Blank slate. Name your salary. She didn't answer right away, not because she was unsure, but because she was beginning to understand. She'd already won. Marissa stared at her phone, Dean's offer still echoing in her ear. Director of Operations. Build the team from scratch. Full autonomy. It was everything Harrington and Blake had always dangled like a carrot, but never meant to give. Except this time, it wasn't a trick. This time, someone wanted her not despite her voice, but because of it. She gave herself 24 hours to think, not because she was hesitating, but because she knew the power of making them wait. That night, She made a list. 2 columns. What I lost. A title I earned, a team I built. The illusion of loyalty, what I gained. Truth, visibility, leverage. And then she opened a blank page and titled it, Who I Hire First. Meanwhile, at Harrington and Blake, things were not quiet. The article hadn't just gone viral, it had stuck. A month after the post, Marissa's name was still circling HR blogs, leadership newsletters, and even a Forbes op-ed titled, The Ortega Effect, When Loyalty Costs You Your Job. The phrase had caught on. In HR circles, it was now shorthand for firing someone and pretending it's business as usual until it goes public. Internally, the CEO was scrambling to manage the fallout. Their biggest client put their renewal under review. 2 junior team members quit in solidarity. Morale was in freefall, and Emily, she'd gone dark on LinkedIn. No more posts, no more smiling team photos, just a quiet edit. Title removed. Actively looking for new opportunities. Monday morning, Marissa. Called Dean back, I'm in, but I want 2 things in writing. 1, I define my own hiring structure. 2, you back me if I ever need to call out unethical behavior, no matter who it comes from. Dean didn't hesitate. Done. You've got my word. And the paperwork. By Friday, the announcement went live. We're thrilled to welcome Marissa Ortega as our new Director of Operations. Image, Marissa in a crisp navy blazer, arms folded, a quiet smirk on her lips. The comments lit up again. Not just support, but inspiration. People who'd been silently watching were now speaking up, sharing their own stories, saying her name like it was a movement. Week 1 on the new job. Her first hire was Layla, a former intern whose ideas had always been dismissed at Harrington. Her second was Denise, an HR specialist who resigned in protest after Marissa was fired. Her third? She hadn't decided yet, but she had someone in mind because there was still unfinished business. One night, Marissa got an email from an anonymous account. You don't know me, but I was on the hiring committee when they let you go. I stayed silent. I shouldn't have. I just wanted you to know. The board is reopening the investigation. Philip's leave isn't temporary anymore. They're offering him an exit package. Marissa read it 3 times. Her hands didn't shake. She didn't need revenge through rage. She'd already planted the seed, and the company was uprooting itself. 3 weeks into her new role as Director of Operations at Kintel Strategies, Marissa walked into her first executive roundtable like she'd been born for it. Her badge didn't say guest. It said leader. Her team had already doubled in size. 8 hires in 21 days, all handpicked. All people she once saw overlooked, underpaid, or passed over at her old job. She wasn't building a team. She was building a statement. We don't just hire skills, she'd said at onboarding. We hire people who were once told to stay in their lane and decided to build a highway instead. The room had gone still, then erupted in applause. But that wasn't the only ripple happening. Late one evening, she got a call from Thea, a name she hadn't heard in nearly a year. Thea had been her right hand at Harrington, a smart, sharp analyst who once rewired their supply chain system on knee, her own after an IT delay. She'd quit quietly after Marissa's firing, slipping away during the chaos. Now her voice was urgent. They're trying to rewrite the whole thing, Thea said, breath short. They scrubbed internal drive logs, deleted old Slack messages, and Philip's getting a soft landing. Full package, Sealed NDA. HR is calling it a dignified offboarding. Can you believe that? Marissa was quiet for a beat. She could believe it. It was exactly what these companies did. Cleaned the mess without fixing the pipe. But she wasn't surprised. She was prepared. The archive. Remember that folder? Future-proofing the fallout? Marissa had never deleted it. She'd moved it. Expanded it. She had time-stamped meeting notes, version histories of policy changes, photos from whiteboards during strategy sessions, ones she designed and never got credit for. Even the original org chart with her name at the center. Before, it was erased. It wasn't just about receipts anymore. It was a blueprint of her legacy. And now that she had her own platform, she wasn't afraid to use it. The speaking circuit, her keynote at the Women in Strategy Summit, was raw, vulnerable, precise. I was replaced before I was even thanked. I didn't get a farewell email, a handshake, or a thank you card. I got silence. But here's the thing. They can replace your position. They can't replace your imprint. Midway through, someone in the crowd stood up and shouted, "Say that again." She did. Back at Kintel, her CEO, Dean, pulled her aside after a leadership review. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. The board just called you our best decision this year." Then he handed her something, a confidential report, something only execs saw. It was a competitive benchmarking analysis. The first company listed in the at-risk of decline category, Harrington and Blake staff turnover, plus 42%. Glassdoor rating, down to 2.3, client loss, 3 contracts withdrawn. Morale index, toxic. Marissa didn't smile, not because she wasn't pleased, but because she understood now. Her victory wasn't about destroying them. It was about becoming undeniable. That weekend, a former intern reached out. A sweet, shy girl named Lily who once cried after Philip told her she wasn't client-facing enough. She was now a junior associate at a small firm, trying to leave but stuck without references. "I don't want to go back to them, but no one remembers I even worked on the Dash integration project. I was just background," Marissa replied instantly. "You were never background. You just had the wrong lighting. I'll be your reference. And if you're willing to relocate, I might have a position for you." One by one, she was reclaiming people, the ones they'd tossed, the ones they underestimated, the ones they ghosted after squeezing out their ideas. And she wasn't done. Because her final move, it wasn't personal. It was structural, and they wouldn't see it coming. It was exactly 82 days since Marissa had been fired. She knew the number, because she'd written it at the top of her whiteboard every morning since starting at Kintel Strategies. And now, staring at the conference agenda in front of her, she added another tally mark beside it. Day 82, Guest Judge, Innovation Rebuild Initiative, National Leadership Roundtable. What did it mean? It meant Marissa Ortega, the same woman who'd once been escorted out like a threat to team culture, now sat on a panel judging operational excellence across Fortune 100 applicants. It meant she wasn't just in the room, she was choosing who got in. But it wasn't all spotlights and applause. That morning, her inbox pinged with an anonymous internal tip. "You should know. Harrington just launched a DEI campaign. They're using your name. We've supported countless leaders like Marissa Ortega, a former team member whose contributions helped inspire our new values initiative. Thought you'd want to see this." Her jaw clenched. Using her name, after deleting her history, after leaking to the press that her firing was due to restructuring. This wasn't ethics. This was damage, control, and they were using her success like a borrowed suit, just long enough to pass inspection. Marissa closed the email. No reply. No panic. She simply opened her notes app and typed, "Weaponizing inclusion, when companies co-opt the image of those they erased." A new keynote was forming. Thursday, 2 p.m. She stepped into a sleek podcast studio in downtown Dallas. The host, a sharp Gen Z business journalist with 250,000 followers, leaned forward. "You've become a symbol for justice in corporate spaces. But what happens when the same companies that wronged you try to reclaim your story as their own?" Marissa didn't blink. That's not reclaiming. That's rebranding. Real change means admitting the harm first, not rewriting it with prettier words. The clip hit 1 million views in less than 48 hours. And in the comments, it started again. "This happened to me. They used my photo in recruiting, while I was still unemployed. She's telling the truth no one wants to hear. Again, H&B needs to sit down. She built her own damn platform." Friday, 11/17. A.M. Dean knocked gently on her glass door at Kintel. "So, I heard from a friend. H&B is trying to win back Rydell Holdings. They're bidding on the same ops contract we're finalizing. You should see this." He slid over a printed pitch deck, recently leaked by someone inside Rydell. Marissa flipped through the slides. It was all the same language: agility, integrity, inclusive leadership. But one detail made her freeze. On page 12, they listed past internal innovation leaders. There it was again. Built under the leadership frameworks developed by former team lead Marissa Ortega. No context, no credit, no mention of how they'd fired her before even saying thank you. Dean raised an eyebrow. "You want me to step in? Pull our bid?" Marissa shook her head slowly. "No. I want us to win it. On merit. And then I want you to give me full control of onboarding, because I know exactly who to hire." 2 weeks later, Kintel won the Manistat contract by a landslide, and when Rydell's VP of Strategic Partnerships walked through the doors of Kintel HQ, he extended a hand to Marissa. "I read everything you wrote. You made the difference." Then, with a smile, "We don't want recycled blueprints. We want the architect." Marissa nodded. That night, she called Layla, her first hire. "I want you leading the Rydell transition." And then she called Lily, the shy intern-turned-analyst. Ready to show them what client-facing really looks like? And finally, she opened LinkedIn and saw something she hadn't expected. Emily Sanders had published a post. "I stayed quiet when I was handed a promotion I didn't earn. I thought being grateful was safer than being right. But now I see the only thing worse than complicity is silence. Thank you, Marissa, for showing me what courage actually looks like. I'm trying to be better." For the first time, Marissa didn't feel tension reading Emily's name, because sometimes justice wasn't a headline. It was seeing someone wake up, even if late. But Marissa wasn't finished, because there was one last place she hadn't spoken yet. The place where it all began, and this time, she wouldn't be invited. She would show up anyway. Day 106. A full circle moment. Marissa stood across the street from the polished glass of Harrington and Blake headquarters, the building that had once been her second home, until it became a lesson. She hadn't come to start a fight. She'd come to finish a story. Inside the lobby, a buzz echoed from the elevators as guests poured into the Ethical Leadership and Innovation Summit. A new initiative by the very company. That had discarded her. Of course they were hosting one now. Of course they'd named it after values they'd only discovered once headlines forced them to. She hadn't been invited, but she didn't need an invitation to walk into a public event. Her name badge was printed by her own assistant the night before. Marissa Ortega, Director of Ops, Kintel Strategies. Guest observer. She stepped inside, and the silence came immediately. Executives looked. HR reps whispered. One VP dropped his coffee. Emily was there too, in the back, eyes wide, frozen like a child who'd just seen the monster she drew come to life. But Marissa didn't flinch. She moved with quiet calm, each step an echo of the strength they once pretended didn't exist. The panel. She sat quietly for the first hour, listened to the CEO give a hollow speech about ethical leadership journeys and transparency in transitions. It was all buzzwords, until the moderator opened the floor. Questions. From the audience, Marissa stood. Her voice was calm, even. Marissa Ortega, Kintel Strategies. I'm curious how this panel defines accountability, especially when the faces you erased are now the ones you name drop when it's convenient. She paused. Let them sweat. Do you consider using someone's legacy to launder your conscience ethical? Because I've been watching, and I haven't seen accountability. I've seen branding. The room fell dead silent. The moderator stammered. The CEO adjusted his mic, and Philip, now a shadow in the back row, stripped of title and status, looked down at his shoes. No one answered, and Marissa didn't wait. She turned, walked out, and left them to choke on her silence. 1 month later, Marissa's newest initiative launched nationwide. The Ortega Standard, a leadership ethics framework adopted by 4 major firms and featured in Harvard Business Review. Her name wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a warning and a blueprint. She built her team. She built her policy. She built a network of professionals once discarded, now rising. People began saying it without even knowing her. You got Ortega'd? Means they fired the wrong person, and now she's building something better. One quiet night at home, Marissa lit a candle and opened a letter. It was handwritten, no return address. You don't know me, but I was on your team once. I kept my head down, watched you take the hits, and said nothing. I'm sorry, but your story helped me leave, helped me find my voice. Thank you for speaking when the rest of us were too afraid. She folded the letter, slowly, and smiled, not with triumph, but with peace. They thought firing her was the end, but it was only the spark.